All right, picture this. You're thinking about backup power, maybe for a storm, maybe camping, or, even just a backyard party. You start looking around, and suddenly you're kind of drowning in terms like power inverter, generator, and this is the kicker, inverter, generator. It's enough to make you just throw your hands up, right, and just live by candlelight. Many of us want reliable power when the grid takes a nap, but choosing the right tool, well, it can feel like trying to crack some obscure code. Well, today we're taking on that code. Our mission in this deep dive is to cut through all that jargon. We want to give you not just a clear understanding of what these devices are, but maybe more importantly, the hidden truths about how they perform, what they really cost you long term, and crucially, which one is truly the perfect fit for your specific needs. Think of it as your shortcut to making a really informed choice. No electrical engineering degree needed.
Exactly. And we've really got 3 distinct categories to unpack here, and the nuances between them are pretty crucial. We're talking about the traditional generator, that old, reliable workhorse. Then there's the increasingly popular inverter generator, which, like you said, is often what people mean when they talk about power inverters for backup power. And then the true standalone power inverter, which is honestly a very different beast altogether. We'll dig into how they work, the real world implications for your wallet, and your sensitive electronics too. And ultimately help you decide which one's going to best serve your power ambitions.
Okay, let's unpack this then. Let's clarify the core differences right from the start. What's fundamentally happening, under the hood that makes each of these devices so distinct? It's not just about a label, is it?
No, not at all. It's really about their core mechanics, how they generate and manage electricity. Let's start with the traditional generator. Okay, imagine a basic engine, like in a lawnmower or small car, burning fuel, gasoline, or diesel usually. That engine's job is to spin an alternator at a constant, pretty high speed, typically 3,600 RPM, revolutions per minute. And that spinning directly produces the alternating current, the AC power that you use in your home. It's sort of a direct brute force approach. Then you have the standalone power inverter. Now, this one is fundamentally different. Why? Because it has no engine whatsoever. It's purely an electronic device. It takes stored direct current DC power from sources like batteries, maybe solar panels, or even your car's 12-volt system. And it converts that into usable AC power. It's basically a power translator. It doesn't generate power itself. It just makes stored power usable for your stuff. And finally, the inverter generator. This is the clever hybrid and, often the source of the most confusion. It does have a fuel-powered engine, similar to a traditional generator. However, this engine doesn't directly create your usable AC power. Instead, it generates AC, which is immediately converted into DC power. And then it's run through a sophisticated inverter circuit to convert it back into a very clean, very stable AC power. The real magic here, its engine speed adjusts based on how much power you're actually drawing. That's a total game changer for efficiency.
Right, and that distinction is incredibly crucial for you, our listener, because it's not just academic, is it? It really boils down to real-world performance, how much noise you'll have to put up with, the quality of power your precious electronics actually receive, and, of course, the overall cost, both upfront and, thinking longer-term, running costs. Knowing these core differences isn't just trivia. It's about avoiding buyer's remorse and maybe even saving your gadgets from getting fried. Okay, let's dive deeper into that first category then. The traditional generator. I've always thought of these as the rugged workhorse. They promise, like immense power for heavy-duty needs. But there's often that significant trade-off, right? Noise and efficiency. So beyond just its raw power, what are the real implications of choosing this kind of beast?
You've absolutely nailed the workhorse description. When it comes to power output, traditional generators are kings. We're talking serious wattage, often up to 20 kilowatts or even more in portable models. So if you need to power, say, a whole home air conditioning unit, or a demanding workshop full of power tools, or just keep multiple large appliances running during a long outage, this is often the go-to for sheer muscle.
So if I'm thinking about powering my entire house during a major blackout, this is the one that'll probably handle my big appliances, the fridge, the AC. But I imagine that kind of brute force has a downside. What about fuel, for instance?
Exactly. It can get the job done for those big loads. But here's one of those hidden truths. Their fuel efficiency is, it's notably lower. Because that engine is just constantly running at 3,600 RPM, it gulps fuel at a pretty consistent high rate, even if you're only drawing a tiny bit of power. We're talking maybe 40% efficiency, sometimes less.
It's like driving your car everywhere stuck in first gear. You'd burn a ton of gas for a minimal distance. That's kind of like a traditional generator under a light load. And this constant high speed directly translates to their significant noise level, typically between 60 to 90 decibels. That's like having a loud conversation, maybe even a lawnmower, running constantly right in your backyard. Your neighbors, they'll definitely know your power's out.
Oh, I remember during a hurricane once, my neighbor's traditional generator was so loud we couldn't even hear ourselves talk in our own backyard. Is that really the kind of disruptive noise level we're talking about? What about the power itself? Is it clean? Good for electronics.
Unfortunately, yes, that level of noise is pretty common. And when it comes to power quality, traditional generators produce what's often called dirty power. This basically means it has a high total harmonic distortion, THD, usually somewhere between 5% and maybe even 20%. Think of it like a wavy, inconsistent electrical current instead of a smooth, steady one from the grid. And this kind of inconsistent power can indeed damage sensitive electronics. We're talking laptops, smart TVs, even modern fridges with complex circuit boards or critical medical devices. It might not zap them immediately, but it can cause subtle cumulative damage over time. Portability is another thing to consider. These units are often bulky and quite heavy. 100 to over 300 pounds for mid-sized models isn't unusual. You usually need two people or maybe a dolly to move them easily. On the plus side, their initial cost is generally cheaper. You can find 2 to 10 kilowatt models typically running from maybe $300 up to $2,000. And the basic units, they tend to have simpler mechanics, so potentially lower maintenance costs if you're handy with a wrench.
Okay, so it's the budget-friendly heavy hitter, but it's loud, thirsty, and potentially risky for my expensive gadgets. That's a significant list of caveats, isn't it? But here's where it gets really interesting, I think, when we contrast this with the next category, the inverter generator. How do these refine that traditional model? How do they make it suitable for sensitive electronics and, thankfully, quieter?
Yeah, this is where modern electronics and some smart engineering really make a difference. Inverter generators were basically designed to tackle many of the traditional generators' big drawbacks. For power output, they typically range from, say, 1 up to maybe 10 kilowatts. Now, while their individual maximum power might cap out lower than a huge traditional generator, the real breakthrough is the quality of that power. They provide incredibly stable output with a remarkably low total harmonic distortion, usually less than 3% THD, which is virtually identical to the clean power you get straight from your wall outlet.
Wow, okay, so if I'm understanding this right, it means I could actually charge my fancy camera gear, run my laptop, maybe even plug in a sensitive medical device directly from an inverter generator, without worrying about frying it. That's a huge leap in peace of mind.
Absolutely. That is the key insight. You get the freedom to confidently power your whole digital life. Charging high-end camera batteries, running essential medical gear anywhere off-grid. You're getting grid-quality electricity, basically. No compromise. And because their engine speed adjusts precisely to the load you're actually drawing, their fuel efficiency is significantly better. They can save between 40% and 50% less fuel compared to traditional generators running the same load, which means longer run times on the same tank of gas. This variable engine speed also directly contributes to their much lower noise level, typically between 50 and 60 decibels. That's more like the sound of a normal conversation or maybe a quiet dishwasher. Your neighbors, they'll definitely appreciate it. And in terms of portability, they are generally lighter and more compact, usually weighing between, say, 20 and 100 pounds. This makes them much easier to just pick up and transport for camping trips, tailgating, or just moving around your property. The cost, however, is higher up front. You're looking at maybe $500 to over $3,000 for a similar power output compared to traditional models. This higher initial price tag reflects the advanced technology inside, that inverter circuitry. And because they do contain more complex electronics, parts like the main inverter board can be quite costly to repair if something goes wrong down the line.
Right. So you're paying more upfront, and repairs could be pricier, but you're getting huge convenience, fuel savings, and that crucial protection for your sensitive gear.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds like a trade-off many people are increasingly willing to make, especially for, recreational use or essential home backup.
Yeah.
What if we want to completely escape the world of fuel, engines, and exhaust fumes altogether? What's the story there?
Okay. For those who really prioritize absolute silence and maybe environmental consciousness, the standalone power inverter is the answer. As we touched on earlier, this device simply converts stored DC power,
whether it's from a big, beefy battery bank, directly from solar panels, or even just your car's 12-volt system into usable AC power. It has absolutely no engine, no moving parts really, beyond maybe a small cooling fan. It relies entirely on an external source for charging to replenish its energy. Its power output is highly variable. You can get small ones, a few hundred watts, up to 5 kilowatts or even more. But, and this is key, it's always inherently limited by the capacity of your battery bank. So it's excellent for low to medium loads, charging phones, laptops, running lights, maybe a small TV. But it's not really designed for continuous high-power demands like a central AC unit unless you have a very substantial and likely expensive battery setup. The biggest advantage, of course, is fuel efficiency, because there is no fuel needed at all. It runs entirely on stored energy. Now, while its runtime is limited by battery capacity under heavy use, if you have a solid solar recharging setup, you could theoretically achieve infinite runtime, though that's obviously weather dependent.
That's fascinating. Infinite runtime with solar. That sounds like the dream, doesn't it? But I imagine the speed of that recharge and just the sheer volume of power you can pull at once are the big differentiators from a generator. It's like a silent guardian, but perhaps not a relentless workhorse for really heavy loads.
Precisely. That's a great way to put it. It's the silent guardian, perfect for when noise is absolutely not an option. The noise level is, well, it's completely silent. Zero engine noise. Ideal for indoor use sometimes, or a quiet cabin, any noise-sensitive area. The power quality is typically very clean and stable, too. Excellent for all electronics, really mimicking grid power closely. In terms of portability, these are generally the most portable solutions. You see handheld units, suitcase-sized models, they're lightweight themselves. But you do need to factor in the weight of the batteries or solar panels that you need to actually power them. The cost of the inverter unit itself might range from, say, $100 to over $1,500. But here's a potential hidden cost people sometimes overlook. You might add the cost of the batteries. And batteries, especially large ones, can be significant. Plus, maybe solar panels if you go that route. So while there are no ongoing fuel costs, there are eventual costs for battery replacements. Batteries degrade over time, typically lasting maybe 2 to 10 years, depending on the type and how you use them. Maintenance and reliability are generally quite low for the inverter unit itself. No engine means no oil changes, no spark plugs, none of that. And the environmental impact. Zero emissions if you're powering it with solar. It's the cleanest option by far. No fuel waste, no exhaust. So its best use cases become pretty clear. Short-term backup for essential devices like phones, laptops, lights during brief blackouts. Or for robust solar setups like off-grid cabins, maybe emergency situations where silence is absolutely paramount. However, it's crucial to understand it's generally not a full generator replacement if you need to run hydro appliances for long periods. Not without a serious investment in batteries and the charging infrastructure to support them. The main drawbacks are really that limited capacity without those big battery banks, potentially slower recharge times compared to just refueling a generator, and it's just not designed for sustained high peak power output in the same way an engine-based generator is.
Wow. The clear contrast in silence and environmental impact between these three options is truly striking, especially when you compare the roar of a traditional generator to the absolute quiet of a standalone inverter. It really highlights how far personal power solutions have come, doesn't it?
Absolutely. So, okay, with all that information laid out, the million-dollar question for you, the listener, is how do you actually choose the right power solution for you? It truly comes down to matching the device to your specific needs, your priorities, and maybe your tolerance for those hidden costs and trade-offs we talked about. So if you need raw, unyielding power on a budget, for rugged, high-demand, stuff-think construction sites, powering large household appliances like a whole AC unit or heavy-duty tools during outages, then you should probably choose a traditional generator. They're straightforward, reliable for those specific tasks, but remember that crucial insight. They are best suited for non-sensitive loads that won't be easily damaged by that dirty power, and you just have to accept the noise and the lower fuel efficiency. Now, if you're looking for something more versatile, maybe for everyday use, where quiet operations, significant fuel savings, and clean power are really important, perhaps for camping, RV trips, home emergencies to run your fridge and essential electronics, or tailgating where you want to power gadgets without risking damage, then an inverter generator is likely going to be your best bet. They really are superior in efficiency and noise. Even though they come with that higher upfront cost, it's often offset by protecting your sensitive electronics and saving fuel over time. And finally, if you want a fuel-free, completely silent solution that pairs perfectly with batteries or maybe solar panels, then a standalone power inverter is what you should seriously consider. It's fantastic for eco-conscious users or for managing those short blackouts where silence and portability are really key. Perfect for ensuring your digital essentials stay powered up. But you need to understand its limitations. It isn't really a full generator replacement for extended high power use unless you make that significant additional investment in battery storage and maybe charging.
That guidance is incredibly practical. And, for those of you whose needs might involve integrating solar power, or maybe you just want the flexibility of a more complete system, don't forget to consider those hybrid systems. They're often called portable power stations these days. And they cleverly combine large battery storage with inverter capabilities, multiple charging options, sometimes even including solar inputs right on the unit. They can offer a really nice blend of features, giving you maybe the best of both worlds, acting as a silent, powerful, and versatile hub for your power needs.
And one more thing, a crucial safety point we just cannot emphasize enough, regardless of your choice. All fuel-based options, so that's both traditional and inverter generators, they absolutely require safe outdoor operation. This is to avoid the deadly risks of carbon monoxide poisoning. Always operate them at least 20 feet away from your home, doors, windows. And look for models that include automatic CO shutoff features. That's an important safety layer. Please don't compromise on safety with these machines.
We've really covered a lot of ground today, haven't we? We've moved from, I think, a world of confusing terms to hopefully a much clearer understanding of traditional generators, inverter generators, and standalone power inverters. And most importantly, we've outlined how you can match each of these powerful tools to your unique power needs, helping you avoid those common pitfalls and, fingers crossed, make the best choice for you.
Yeah, and what's truly fascinating here, I think, is that this evolution of personal power backup, it isn't just about watts and decibels, is it? It genuinely reflects a broader shift in our collective priorities. We seem to be moving from just focusing on brute force power to valuing efficiency, quiet operation, and definitely a growing desire for more sustainable, emission-free solutions. The market is clearly responding to a demand for not just any power, but, smart power, and that kind of leads to a final provocative thought for you to mull over. As battery technology continues its rapid advancement, getting lighter, more powerful, cheaper all the time, and as renewable energy integration becomes even more seamless in our daily lives, what will the next generation of personal power devices truly look like? How might your future power needs and your values continue to influence these incredible innovations, pushing the boundaries of what's possible for off-grid living and backup solutions? Something to think about.